Well, one of the things we ended up doing is I was having to teach 60 MBA students that semester, and I hijacked one of those class sessions. And for 90 minutes, I did nothing more than tell them that if I gave them a huge bowl of Chex Mix, they would serve themselves and eat more than if I gave them just a slightly smaller bowl. Because it looks normal, reasonable, typical to do that larger bowl than a smaller one. I demonstrated it, lectured it, showed videos. They broke into groups to figure out how they prevent this from happening to themselves. And after 90 minutes, these were intelligent, informed people who knew what to do. Now, about 6 weeks later, I invited them back after the Christmas break was finished. I invited them to a Super Bowl party. There's a place called Jillian's. It's one of those nice sports bars that are franchised across cities. And one of the things that happens when they walked into the bar, sports bar, they were led randomly to one of two rooms that were identical, except that in this room there were huge bowls of Chex Mix on the table, big massive bowls. So they served themselves. When we got down to the end of the table, they were told, "Man, can you fill something out for me? So who's going to win the game?" They said, "Yeah, let me do that." The only place they could put their plate was a corner of the table, under which there was a scale. Lift up that little tablecloth, there's a scale there. These people did this, and when they put it down, it shows up in the next room just how much they took. The same thing's going on in the other room, but of course it's slightly smaller bowls. But it's so transparent. It's the same color bowl they'd seen 6 weeks earlier. It's the exact same food in the bowl they'd seen 6 weeks earlier. They still took 53% more food, simply with this a bigger bowl. What do you suppose happened when they left that day? And we said, "Hey, on average, you guys took about 50% more than people who had slightly smaller bowls. Do you think the size of the bowl had anything to do with it?" What do you think people said? No. Oh, come on, how could it? I'm an intelligent, informed person. And in a lot of these situations, being intelligent and being informed is trumped by habit and environment almost all the time. Okay? In fact, we did something else. We said, well, how far can we push this? And if you think of the last time you overate, think of the last time you overate. Last night, maybe? Last weekend? Is there anybody who can't think of a time they overate? What I'd like you to do is ask yourself, why was it that you overate on that occasion? Why? You don't have to ask, don't answer me, but why was it that you ate so much on that occasion? Because you have thousands upon thousands of data points to assess how hungry you are and how much it's going to take to feed that, to satisfy that. Right? You've done this 3 days for every day of your life. Why was it on that one occasion you so grossly overate? Now, typically, with a group about this size, about 11% would say, well, the last time I overate is for some emotional reason. It was a bad day, it's kind of lonely, or something like that. About 50% of you would say, the last time I overate was because I was really, really hungry. And about 38% of you would say, well, the last time I overate, it's because of the food. The food was unbelievably good. Well, we decided to run a study where we took people who weren't hungry and we gave them food that wasn't good. We wanted to see what happened, whether these cues still mess people up if you take the two leading excuses people have. So what we ended up doing was, we ended up going to a movie theater, and when people came in, we gave them complimentary popcorn, and in those popcorn buckets that are like this size, and they cost like what, $14. Or we gave them the really big buckets, the ones this big, which cost like $14.05. Okay? But this wasn't normal popcorn. This is popcorn that had been sitting in a humidity-controlled, sterile environment, okay, for 5 days. This was in an entomology lab. Okay. And what happens when people come in, you get fresh popcorn. If you ever watch people, they come, they sit down, they go. The person next to them tries to talk, and you go. Can't talk, eating. Yeah. When somebody has stale, nasty, styrofoam-tasting popcorn, what happens is they come in, they sit down, they take that one bite of popcorn, and they just rinse. And, they put the popcorn down, and about 3 or 4 minutes later, they kind of do this. Popcorn. And it continues through the entire movie, okay? It's so crazy that this happens. But what happens at the end of the movie, you end up seeing that with the stale popcorn, the typical person eats 34% more if you give them a big bucket. That's even though the popcorn is terrible and they are full. But what do you suppose, again, happens when you intercept them on their way out of the theater and say, you ate about 1/3 more than the other group. Do you think the size of the bucket had anything to do with it? What do you think they say? No, come on. How could it? And that's the power of these cues. Okay? So it's not necessarily education and willpower. It's not even the taste of food and the temptation. It's sometimes simply the cues that are set in our environment get us to do the wrong thing rather than the right thing. And so to believe that if we only educated people and we only helped fortify their willpower in some way, the problem will be solved, will not be solved. It's these scripts that run in people's minds and habits that get formed. Now there's another set of colleagues that many of us have who kind of believe that, so we mess up every once in a while. We wouldn't be alive as humans if we weren't able to course correct to some extent. If we made a big mistake one day and could never recover from it, no, we'd go like extinct. And I want to look at this with respect to food. And it's the idea of don't worry, we self-regulate. Now, I did a study a while back where I asked 150 Parisians, how do you know you are through eating dinner? Let me ask you that. If I were to ask you, how do you know when you're through eating dinner? If you can answer yourself, what would you say? Well, if you're Parisian, the number one answer you'd give is, I know I'm through eating dinner when I'm no longer hungry. Okay. Or the second one is, I know I'm through eating dinner when the food no longer tastes good. Right? These are internal cues. They're using their tummy and their tongue to say, stop! It's the same thing of 150 Chicagoans 3 months later. The number one answer for Chicagoans was, I know I'm through eating dinner when, my plate's empty, yeah. The second was, I know I'm through eating dinner when everybody else is through eating dinner. Like you turned off the light and left me alone in the dark. And the third is, I know I'm through eating dinner when the TV show I'm watching is over. Okay? Now, those are all external cues. And to the extent that we end up relying on external cues, they're almost all going to move us in the wrong direction. Because when it comes to food especially, we live in a tremendous environment. There's tasty, cool things all around us. We see flashy ads. We see the person that's next to us is eating. Okay? So we are almost lost if we end up relying on those external cues. We want to look at what happens if a plate never empties. Do we self-regulate? Well, we developed this series of tables. And what we did is we took soup bowls like this and drilled holes in the bottom of soup bowls. And then we drilled holes to the table. And we took food-grade tubing and stuck it in the bottom of the bowl, poked it down to the table, over, in this case, to the big steaming vat of soup. That holds about 6 quarts. Okay? And it's force-fed here. And what we find is that if that person starts eating soup, this is the setup so that the level in the soup bowl will very slowly go down. But the second they stop, it will imperceptibly start to rise again. So this poor woman is going to have to eat, she's going to have to eat 6 quarts of soup before she ever sees the bottom of that bowl. Okay? Now, what's interesting about this is you say, well, if I was eating out of a bowl of soup that never ended, I would know it. You'd think so. But out of about 160 people who've been involved in 2 different versions of the study, only 2 people realized anything was happening. One person had dropped like a fork or a spoon, kind of, and they see all this board-like tubing under the table. Somebody else then picked up a soup bowl, kind of channeling some Viking ancestor. Picked it up. It comes out of the table like a coral snake, So most of us would not figure it out, because the thing is, there's too many cool things going on in the environment. Okay, we're talking to somebody, we're having fun, or maybe you're reading a newspaper, watching TV. You're not taking a bite of soup and kind of saying, "Am I full yet? Am I full yet?" No, you're using a rule of thumb or a script that you developed over all the years of your life that says, when I get to the bottom of the bowl of soup, I'm done. Well, when will you be full when I reach the bottom? Good luck with that. One of the things we ended up finding was that the typical person who didn't have a refillable soup bowl ate about 73% more. But what was interesting is they never rated themselves as any more full or any more sated than the group that just was given a regular bowl. So they had 10 minutes to eat, and in 10 minutes there were 5 or 6 people that ate over a quart of soup. What happens is that somebody at the bottom of this refillable soup bowl, you say, "Hey, are you full?" They go, "No, how can I be full? I still have half a bowl of soup left. What's up with you? You can see that." This is the thing, we don't self-correct. We don't regulate from day to day, it appears. Well, the second part I want to talk about are these 200 decisions and the tyranny in the moment. But we did this, we did a study a while back, and we triangulated this a whole bunch of ways, gave people counters, we did all sorts of bizarre things. Figured out how many times a day a person thought about food in a way that led them to have to make a decision. And that decision can be, do I want Rice Krispies or Fruit Loops? That decision can also be, should I go get another Diet Pepsi? Well, even if I answer no, that's a food decision. Okay? Or if you're driving down the road and you see a sign like this that says, "Beat diabetes. Buy 5 Junior Frosties for $1." Even if you see that and you decide, you say, "No, I'll do it when I get back from the diabetes conference." Even if you make a decision not to pull into the driveway, you made a food decision. It was a decision not to eat food. You still made a decision. And the thing about these decisions, you can take a look at roughly how they break down from normal weight, overweight, and obese people, is that there are a ton of these things that go on. If you're an obese person, you're making a huge number of decisions a day. Okay? Unfortunately, the answer to a lot of those decisions is what? Yes. Yeah. And you notice here, there's a little U shaped here that if you're a normal weight or even an underweight person, you also end up making a whole lot of decisions about food every day. Okay? Just that in those cases, the answer tends to be no. Okay? Or it tends to be much more deliberative about, I will take the salad, but I want the dressing on the side. Now, the fact that these things happen all the time, if we don't have some, or if a person doesn't have some set of scripted, non-conscious rules, what they're left to do is to deliberate on every single decision. And if you have a bad day, and if you want to excuse to eat that chocolate ice cream that's in the freezer, the Ben & Jerry's,